Transportation Commission meeting. Today is July the 10th. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is now 9:02. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Enegren, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please stand, face the flag, right hand over your heart, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Chair McQueen-Lejeune.
Here.
Vice Chair Parvin.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Crosswhite.
Here.
Commissioner Enegren.
Here.
Commissioner Halter.
Here.
Commissioner Judge.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner MacArthur.
Here.
Commissioner Tremblay.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move now to our ceremonial calendar, or VCTC Employee Service Pin Ceremony. Mr. Erickson, do you have anything? Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair McQueen-Lejeune. Very excited about this service pin item. I'm going to go down to the podium, and I'm asking the chair, vice chair, and immediate past chair to come join me, and we will be passing out service pins to VCTC employees. On this side of the aisle for a while. It's kind of interesting. So this is a new tradition for VCTC to do service pins for years of service for VCTC employees. And the pins are 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, 20 year. And we actually have a 25-year made too, as we're gonna have some folks close to that. But because this is the first time we're doing it, we just thought we would give everybody a pin who's eligible for one right now. And we're going to start with the 1 year pins. And I just wanted to add really quick, these are, as you know, as we say a lot, as I say a lot, we have a small but mighty team here at VCTC. This is the administrative staff. We have nearly 100 contract staff also between RATP Dev, our transit service, and they have representatives here, and MV Transit. But these are the folks in the office, and it's just a real thrill to be able to do this today. So I will start, and I will call up the employees. And if the employees could stay after they get their pin, we're going to do a quick group photo afterwards. I'm going to have all the employees stand up here in the dais area, and commissioners on this side are going to go stand behind the commissioners there. And I think we should all be able to fit a group photo in place. So with that, I'm going to call up Lupe Acero for a 1 year pin, our finance director. Thank you. And now Daisy Contreras from the finance department for a 1 year pin. Daisy and Lupe are also Fillmore residents, so I know Carrie's not here today, but get that. Next, Matt Miller for a 1 year pin, Transit Department. And Sissy Perez from the Transit and Planning Departments, Programming Departments. Imelda Racus from the Finance Department. Followed by Luz Rodriguez from the Regional Transit Information Center, or as I used to call when I was transit director, the center of the universe for transit information and other calls. Thank you, Luz. Vanessa Schoenwald from our still relatively new Director of Programming. Aubrey Smith from the Transit Department. Gaiska, is Gaiska here? She's, oh, sorry, okay. So that's the 1 year. Now we will go to the 5-year service pins, and we'll start with Caitlin Brooks from the Transportation Planning Department.
Congratulations.
Has it been over 5 years? That seems very fast. Followed by her director, Amanda Fagan, from our Director of Sustainability and Programming. Well, she's closing in on, followed by Claire Grasty, our Director of Transit. And Claire's one of the people who will celebrate 10 years next year, so, you know, some of this will keep Claire. And then Roxana Ibarra, our Clerk of the Commission. Thank you, Roxana. Followed by Erin Keneally from the Transit Department. Wow. I remember interviewing Erin during the pandemic, so this just kind of puts, thank you for being here. Followed by Andrew Kent from Amanda's team, the Transportation Planning Department. And Heather's not here. Heather's not here, right? Is Heather Miller here? Yeah, Heather's not here. Okay. And then last of the 5 years, but not least, Darren Peshka, our own Darren Peshka, Manager of Government and Community Relations. Okay. Now we're getting up in a little higher years. 2 10-year pins. One is mine, so you can. Thank you. Thank you. And the other is Tao Lee, who is on a very well-deserved vacation, but she's part of Lupe's team in finance and started just a little bit after me. So that's a 10-year. Now we're going on to the 15-year. Start with our own Steve Effner, our Manager of IT and all things. And Steve's another one who's getting very close to 20. I think next year will be his 20, but you get your 15 this year. And Avi Castillo also had a 15-year pin. She's on vacation right now, though. Which brings us to the 20-year pins. So we'll start with Denisha Riley, our... In addition to being the first person people see when they come into the office, Denisha's also our chief party planner for the office, coordinates great potlucks, and has a lot of, right. And then our currently longest serving employee, Dolores Lopez, also a 20-year pin, and closing in on 25. So, oh God, we can bring you the pin. Oh yeah, we can get.
She's got the downhill. Yeah,
Okay, well, this is fantastic. You guys can either stay here or go back to your seats, and then folks on this side, if you could go line up behind the commissioners there so we can all be in this area. We'll take a quick group photo, and then we'll be finished. But I just wanted to say I just wanted to thank my team. Mayor MacArthur might realize this, but when I was in Oxnard working with him, we had a service pin thing that lasted for many, many decades. Unfortunately, it ended shortly before I got my 10-year pin. But it's a nice tradition. I just want to thank all the commissioners and all the staff.
yeah, there you go. Come.
All right, everybody, let's make sure we can see everyone here. Okay, I got you all good. Look right at me, please. Do a couple 3, 2, 1. Couple more here. 3, 2, 1. Okay, hold for maybe one more camera.
Yeah. I'm gonna add faces to all of you.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Port of Hueneme. You didn't know you were gonna be having other duties as a sign. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Joe.
And in case anyone is trying to leave, regardless if you received a 1-year or 20-year pin today, we thank you for your service and your continued service. And so we're looking forward to next year when some of you will be getting another pin for the next year. So thank you for all that you continue to do for VCTC. Thank you. We're going to go back to our agenda, item number 5. Do we have any public comments?
There are no public comments. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Then we're going to move to Commissioner Roberts for the Caltrans report.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chair McQueen-Lejeune, Commissioners, Director Erickson, Gloria Roberts, District 7 Director. I want to again start off by also congratulating the Service Year Award. Everything begins and ends in leadership. So Director Erickson, for you to start this tradition of celebrating years of public service really means a lot, especially for all of us who are public servants here on the commission board, as well as the staff that really work very, very hard. A lot of times your work may go unnoticed, but the benefits that the communities receive as a result of your service can be really demonstrated in the results of the projects. And I say this because last week I was able to participate at the Port of Hueneme's celebration, their Ticket to Ride, or Ticket to Results celebration, culminating to demonstrate some of the successes from the $80 million Port Freight Infrastructure Program investments from the state of California. CalSTA Secretary Omashakin was there. So thank you very much, CEO DeCas, for extending the invitation to Caltrans and for really showing what transportation investments can do in terms of the work that the staff put in to apply and receive the funding and make use of the funding and the return on investment to the communities and to the economy. This is what public service is about. So I just wanted to highlight your team for making that happen, for showing the results. And with the enactment of the 26-27 budget, Caltrans is also still on firm footing to continue its transportation work throughout Ventura County. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. We'll move to the commissioner reports. Any? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Tremblay, Commissioner Tremblay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I need to report to the commission. From June 28 to July 1, I did attend the American Public Transit Association Rail Conference in Baltimore, Maryland. It had direct relevance to the work that we're doing at Metrolink. There were a number of courses that were well done, or presentations that were well done, including on public safety and continuing evolution where commuter railroads are going, and rail operations and the use of AI, which I've only begun to scratch the surface on AI. I don't know about you, but it was a very humbling experience for me in that respect. But it was an excellent conference, and I appreciate being able to go. VCTC sent me, basically, on this. So just a real quick ditto to what Commissioner Roberts said. It's really easy for me to represent VCTC at Metrolink because we have such outstanding staff, VCTC staff. And it's not just Metrolink, it's not just Claire and Aubrey, it's everybody. without fail, when I've asked for information, we just have an excellent staff. So I'm just going to say ditto to what Gloria said and say thank you for all of your efforts. They really do go noticed. They don't go unnoticed. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Great. Any other commissioners? If not, we'll move on to the Executive Director report. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Chair McQueen-Lejeune, and I appreciate the kind comments from Director Roberts and Commissioner Tremblay, and just again want to acknowledge my team and I think the important and ongoing and exciting work that we're involved in. This is I feel very privileged to the Executive Director of this organization, and even though we're not at full commission strength today, we still have a pretty good turnout up here. When you have a 17-member board, it's, I wouldn't say the group has grown smaller and more distinguished because all commissioners are important, but those who are here today, I really do appreciate it. You have my Executive Director's report in front of you. I just wanted to highlight a few of the items. Vanessa Schoenwald, our newest director, was at the California Transportation Commission and had some important achievements up there, not least of which was getting an extension on some of our critical programs at the Camarillo train station, but wanted to acknowledge her and her team for getting that, as that's not always a guarantee. And the California Transportation Commission has its own environment and its own culture, and I'm glad we are very well positioned and kind of following that closely. Also, just wanted to note that we had an event with the Camarillo Police Department for an e-bike and e-moto informational event, and appreciate the VCTC staff who was part of that, Darren Peshka. And as you know, e-bikes are a concern not just in Camarillo, but in all communities, and how we work to provide better information about them, about some of the dangers and challenges they present. VCTC doesn't have any authority over cities or the county to really regulate them. We can regulate them on our train stations and maybe on the railroad, but that's about where our area falls in. But a lot going on, and again, looking forward to this presentation today, especially with our presentation from the port. One of our, as I said before, VCTC is an agency about partnerships at all levels with each of the 10 cities, with the county, with Gold Coast Transit District, and of course the Port of Hueneme I call one of our premier partners, along with Caltrans, because we really work very closely with both of them. With that, I'm open to any questions, Chair.
Any questions? If not, thank you for your report. We're going to move to item number 9. Back to you, Mr. Erickson. Were there any additions or adjustments to the agenda?
No, we don't have any additions or adjustments to the agenda.
Okay, great. We'll now move to the consent calendar. The consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless a commissioner would like to pull an item. Are there any items to be pulled for further discussion?
Madam Chair, I just have to announce that I will be recusing myself from consent item 10D. So
10D.
I just have to make that announcement. Thank you.
Anyone else? Great. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move approval.
Second, White.
Great. So first and second, Madam Chair, take a roll call vote. Oh, I should have asked, were there any public comments to the consent calendar? Do we have any public comments to the consent calendar?
There are no public comments to the consent calendar.
Great, thank you.
To the chair, I would just like to clarify that I believe Commissioner Judge, it was 10I. 10I, just for the
10I?
record. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Anderson? Yes. Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Halter?
Yes.
Commissioner Judge?
Yes on all except 10I.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner MacArthur,
Yes.
Commissioner Tremblay,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Parvin,
Yes.
Chair McQueen-Lejeune.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to discussion calendar. Our first item is the Port of Hueneme update. Over to you, Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Chair McQueen-Lejeune. As Director Roberts noted, we had a big event last week at the port, which I'm sure Kristen is going to touch on. But I have to say, it just makes me very proud to be partners with the port and just with our community. I mean, Ventura County is not a huge county, but the fact that we had the director of CalSTA here in what I thought was an excellent event just really underscores the partnership strength that the port brings. And welcome, Kristen. Great to have you here. And looking forward to the presentation.
On behalf of my board, I just want to extend our gratitude for the partnership. I know that a lot of you did come out to our event. Thank you for your kind remarks, Director, and for the hard work of your staff to put this $80 million to work. It is a different type of project for Caltrans to run port projects and workforce development projects, and you've really stepped up and helped us get these projects over the finish line. And we couldn't be where we are without the support of this board, the leadership of our local communities. I know that Mayor McQueen-Lejeune, you were with us, Mayor MacArthur, you were with us. Many of you were represented by staff. So just again, thank you from my board to you for everything we're able to do together to move our county forward. So a little bit about what's going on at the port. Just a quick reminder, we are a special district of the state of California. We do not collect taxpayer money. The revenues come in from our hardworking customers that generate the economic activity that occurs at the port, 25,000 jobs, $2.8 billion in economic impact. And our goal is not to become a rich port. Our goal is through cargo and commerce to create prosperity for our community. In other words, not become a rich port, but enrich our community. So a little bit, I'm here to give an update, so I thought I'd have a little fun. I don't know if I'm dating myself. Everybody remember this guy? Some folks don't know this, but we are the proud owner of a World Trade Center license, and we're really trying to brand that in a more unique way. It's something that our communities can all thrive from. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of businesses. 95% of consumers are in other parts of the world. So we just want to work with our businesses here in the county and help access those markets through this World Trade License. And Adam Vega is with us today, and he's leading up and heading up the charge on this particular project if you want more information on it. We also have a foreign trade zone in the face of tariffs and trade policy, and there's an opportunity to defer tariff costs and save money for businesses by using this foreign trade zone status that we have at Port of Hueneme. If your businesses want to learn more about that when they're importing goods into our county, we can certainly assist with saving some money on the tariffs if it makes sense for your particular companies. Just a little bit about us. You know, when you're in the backyard of LA and Long Beach, the sixth largest complex in the world, we always have to put out our squeaky wheel stats. So we move about 18 billion in cargo, number one West Coast banana port, but also the number one blueberry port, fourth in California for containers, sixth in the West Coast, 5 in the nation for both refrigerated cargo and automobiles, and we're the nation's 16th largest container port and rank in the top 10% of all ports when you look at us through a national lens. I love this slide, just I guess I have a little bit of competitive juices, but when you look at the ag that we do in our county, we actually move more refrigerated cargo than the Port of Long Beach. And it just kind of shows how much monopoly, if you will, we have in this space when it comes to supporting agricultural commodities coming through our port and serving 15 states. We've grown about 80% over the last decade, and that's thanks to the support that we've gotten here in this room and the hardworking staff of my team to generate more opportunity, our customers, our longshoremen, labor support to grow at that capacity. And I thought here I'd just pause for a second. Our industry has been under a little bit of duress. You all watch the news. It kind of starts with COVID. And you all remember when there were 200 vessels lining upside the San Pedro ports. Then we have recently the Strait of Hormuz disruptions, Suez Canal closures, Panama Canal drought. And then we have interesting developments with trade policy, which I'll take you on that journey in just a second. But we have been impacted in some areas and not in others. So you'll see through the tariff slide why this is. But our autos are down. You can imagine some of those tariffs do have impacts on the cargo coming through here. So that's about 50% of our revenue. And in October, that was actually down 25%. So we are seeing some recalibration. So on the year close for this fiscal year, 26, we're down about 14%. But because our customers are innovative, those car ships can carry other things. So they're carrying a lot of high and heavy. They're carrying a lot of lithium-ion batteries that are going to be used to build AI stations. I don't know quite what you call them around the country. A lot of these batteries I know are going to Tennessee. So there's a lot of high and heavy cargo. So we've seen growth there because they're filling the ships with other things. And then because of our banana business, our blueberry business, our relationships with the agriculture sector, the container business is up about 5%. But this is some of what you see in the news and some of what you might not be hearing about in terms of the kind of uncertainty around trade policy and tariffs and those sorts of things. So if you'll bear with me, we'll just run through this quickly. So it all started in 25. After the inauguration of our president, we started kind of investigations on China and made some findings that there are some things that the administration wanted to do. And then in February, they raised the tariffs on Chinese goods and Canadian energy projects. And I'm going to pause here because there's a lot of different tools the administration is using to implement these tariffs. So there's something called the USTR, which is the U.S. Representative Trade Office, and under Section 301, that agency can impose fees and tariffs. Then there's Section 301, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which gives the president authority to implement tariffs in national emergencies, and those are those Liberation Day tariffs. Then there's Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, and this is where the president also has the authority, if the Department of Commerce deems national threat, to restrict imports. And this is where the auto tariffs came into play, and also the tariffs on aluminum and steel. Then there's Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, where the president gets emergency authorities to impose tariffs. So there's a lot of things that work here, and some of these have been deemed illegal and some of them have not. So it kind of sets a different tone of what's really happening in terms of the tariffs that are being imposed, particularly on the products here at Port Hueneme. So 232, if you see in that slide there, that's when they imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, and that's across the board. Then there were some discussions through this USTR, the Section 301, to impose fees on ships if they weren't built in America. If they were built in China, there was going to be fees. And they were investigating this. They didn't go into play just quite yet. That's when the conversation began. Then in March, you had increased tariffs on Chinese goods under the IEEPA, and then you had Liberation Day, and that was the IEEPA tariffs that went into play. And then you had, just one day later, the 232 tariffs on cars, aluminum, and steel. You need a doctorate to keep up with this. So then there were some modifications under the USTR 301 rules on ship fees, and for car ships, they decided that if the car ship was built in any country, it was going to pay a fee to call on American ports. And these fees, as they were going through them, were very steep. It would have cost close to $50 million for a company to call just on the Port of Hueneme. And they continued to negotiate these fees. The car ships and the container ships were treated differently. The ships are too small. They come into Hueneme now to have to pay these fees as it stands today. So our container ships are okay. Our ro-ro ships are looking at these fees. Our roll-on, roll-off ships, whether the car ships. Then you had a lot of deal making going on, right? And so then you had deals in June of 2025 with UK to set up certain fees on tariffs, continued with Japan, European Union, South Korea, and you can see how they're going under these different tariff tools, 232, IEEPA, there was more tariffs implemented under that. continued deals with Japan in September 2025 under both section, the IEEPA and 232. Then you had the EU agreement that came out under 232. And then in October of last year, they did impose those ship fees. And so our car carriers had to pay it. And that's when we had a significant drought in cars, that when our business went down that month, close to 40%, because they had to pay these ship fees. And it would have honestly been $50 million for a company to call just on the Port of Hueneme. But then they decide to pause those for a year. So who knows what will happen next, but those fees are currently paused. And so there were continued tariffs on this is interesting for all of you, but this is on buses. So there were tariffs on all countries for buses and vehicle parts and those sorts of things under Section 232. That's when the USTR suspended the car carrier fees. It was a month after that October date. Then you had certain commodities exempt from the tariffs, which was good for us because that's the bananas, the blueberries, the avocados, the melons, and all those sorts of things that come into the port. Continued dealing with South Korea, big for us because we handle Hyundai and Kias. They do about 200,000 cars through the Port of Hueneme. Then we break into this year, and the Supreme Court ruled the IEEPA tariffs are legal, but not the other ones. So 232 is still in effect. So the aluminum, steel, which is raising the cost of construction, those sorts of things, and the auto tariffs are still in effect, along with those agreements with South Korea and all the 232s that you see up there. After that ruling by the Supreme Court under the Section 122 I spoke to, there was a 10% tariff imposed on all countries, and then international court ruled that illegal because 3 companies sued, but it's only illegal for those 3 companies, so everybody else is paying this 10% for 150 days. It sunsets July 24th. So I still think there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of uncertainty in what's going with all these different tools the administration has. But where we sit today, this is what we're looking at with our big countries, the countries that we do business with in terms of the tariffs that are in play. So you see the 122 tariffs are in effect at 10%, and then you see all the 232 tariffs. And so that's what's impacting our businesses. So there you have it. It's a little different world we live in, and we're just trying to keep up with all of it. Despite some of that uncertainty, we continue to have really strong relationships with our partners around the world. We have Green Corridor relationships with Korea, Japan, with our customers. We have sister port relationships with countries we do business with. So our global relationships remain super strong. So turning into infrastructure, yes, this was the big day that we had everyone out, the $80 million grant that we received for the state. It had a lot to do with the support that we get from this board. And we were able to turn $80 million into about $220 million in infrastructure development projects happening at the Port of Hueneme. It also generated private investment. We're using those funds to not only modernize our port, but turn our port into a zero-emission port by 2030. So thank you for your leadership, your support, and all the contributions you have participated in to make that a reality for us. Zero emission by 2030, we're running strong in this space. We really think we can do it. We're charging forward is the theme we're using there, but we got a $43 million EPA grant to electrify 95% of our equipment to zero emission equipment. So a lot going on there. You have brought a lot of money to the table to help with the electrification initiatives. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, board. It's about $23.9 million in CMAQ projects, congestion mitigation, air quality projects to support our electrification and zero emission program. On the community front, you can't have commerce without community. You can't have community without commerce. So we go hand in hand. We really believe in lifting up the people of Ventura County through the opportunities of the port. We have a lot of trade logistics classes with our high school students. We do food drives. We do about $370,000 in sponsorships. Supporting, we're just out with the Mayor MacArthur at the 250 celebration in Oxnard, celebrating our youth and sponsoring our local sports teams and those sorts of things. The port can't thrive without the community, and we really want to give back. And so we do what we can there. We do a lot of tours. In fact, if anyone wants to come out for a tour, please come see these projects in action. We can support your school systems, anything. Please come out and see the facility. As part of the PFIP grant, we're running what we call a speed campaign. It's the Workforce Development Pipeline, where we're taking $2 million of the grant and infusing it into our local college, Oxnard College, our local Ventura College community, CSUCI for internships. In fact, Oxnard Foundation is matching $250,000 of the grant to continue to build these apprenticeships and internships. And then we're working with the nonprofit community to have opportunities for youth and hands-on learning, so that it's kind of cradle to adults, and we do ESL classes for parents. So it's just been a really wonderful program. And at the event, a young woman spoke about how the ESL program has changed her life for her parents. So that was kind of neat to see it really going to work. And then we know 3 students that are participating in this program got jobs. 3 with the Navy, and we just went out to Chiquita's site in Oxnard, and we met little John, who got a certificate from Oxnard College. So it's just fun to see that it's paying off, and we are getting jobs for the youth. End of last Saturday of September, we have our Banana Fest. Please come out. It might sound funny, but 13,000 people come out for our Banana Fest. We'd love to have you there. On the innovation front, I'll just quickly play this video. I think we're all familiar with FathomWorks, but
we are FathomWorks, a next-gen tech collaborative hosted at the Port of Hueneme. Be advised, this isn't your average lab. It's a dynamic space where non-traditional startups, bold entrepreneurs, fearless innovators, and leading academics team up with the Department of Defense. Together, they're tackling the toughest challenges across military, port, and maritime domains. Wearable haptics, swarms of quadcopters, and autonomous unmanned surface vessels. They've all been incubated here. This is FathomWorks.
So it's really exciting for our counties. We have this designation for, we have the 805 project going on with the county, just all these exciting things in this space around being the nation's real hotspot for innovation around automation, these automated systems and drone technology. And it's super exciting that the port has a place to play with this as well. And that's just in closing, I just want to run through some of our gratitude and partnerships. We worked together on a freight study with VCTC, so thank you for helping us be able to share with the community the impact of the port. About 23% of the trucks on Hueneme Road are related to the port, and about 0.6% of all truck traffic in our county is from port traffic. So it just kind of shows what our imprint is here when it comes to trucking. We work together on building the regional transportation plan and making sure all our projects get in there for SCAG, because they can't get funded if they're not in that book. So thank you, Martin, for helping us get those in there. We are now part of the nation's national multimodal freight network. We weren't on there, now we are. So thank you for all the support and joint letters to get us that designation. We continue to work together on grants. I meant to update this slide. This is an old one we didn't get, but we're working on another one through various applications to support building a corridor in Port Hueneme, just right outside the gate. So we're working with the city of Hueneme VCTC to get funding to fix roads outside of the gate, and we're hoping we can land some funding through that. That was the project I just mentioned there. And then that does it for me. And just thank you, everyone, for your generous time with me this morning and everything that you do to help the Port of Hueneme. Thank you very much. And this is just I just put it up there. This was a parade when they broke ground to build the port. And you can see that mayor, it's right on Market Street there. It's kind of fun. And I think Oxnard has a float. The Chamber of Commerce has a float. It's kind of neat. We're going to recreate this when we put the Bard statue up and celebrate our 90th birthday. So we're going to try and have another parade. So I hope you all can come out for it. Not sure we'll get the float. I mean, not the float.
Kristen, is that 1937?
It is.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Yeah, it's fun. So again, thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions? Commissioner White?
Thank you very much, Chair. I don't really have any questions, but I'd like to do a hats off to you because it's amazing all the work that you guys do down there and how much you impress, how much you make a difference in our county. The trade and tariffs, I don't know how you get through that. Every day is a different trade and tariff, so good luck with that. But very impressed with the fresh produce that you distribute to so many people out there. As you know, a lot of people out there are suffering, not getting enough food and stuff. And then the speed campaign with the colleges. I think that's a great idea to get people interested in what's going on out there, giving them a chance to see what's going on out there, but also the idea that there's jobs out there, and you promote that constantly. So again, thank you and very much, and hats off to you. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Great. Commissioner MacArthur.
Thank you for the time. Kristen, thank you so much. For those in the audience and those watching at home, the port is so vital economically to our entire region. But more so than that, you are so vital to our nonprofits and partnering with so many, truly just enriching our community. It's not just lip service that I see, it's in action. You are everywhere. And I think that's a testament to your leadership and those of the commissioners. And I'm just so fortunate that the port is here in our region supporting so many of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? Commissioner
Yes.
Parker.
Thank you. First of all, learning all the acronyms in your field is very challenging. I can certainly see that. But I think what I'm most impressed with is the ability for the port to adapt. I mean, you realize that you're losing on the car end of business, but then you found another way to make it up to the best of your ability. Yeah. So bravo to you and the port and all of your board. So congratulations.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Great. Anyone?
I just wanted to add, thank you, Kristen. Always a good update. I sometimes think the transportation world is full of challenging acronyms, and then I realize there's a whole separate, But I think, especially now with some of the issues we're facing at the state level in terms of funding and priorities, it's very helpful to us when we are seeking transportation grants to be able to say this is the only deep water port between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and it helps us get grants, and it helps us remain competitive as we move forward, because we are on the radar of Sacramento, and that's an important place to be right now. Yeah. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Dekas, for your presentation. Appreciate it. I will tell you this. I think that your presentations are so valuable for really any and everyone to see. I don't think people know what really goes on at the port, and I'll tell you, every time when I see a presentation, updated presentation, I'm more impressed by what you all are doing out there. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your partnership.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move. This is a receive and file, so we'll go to item number 12, the legislative update, and that's going to be Ms. Peshka.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I have to say the port presentation is a difficult presentation to follow. So I hope this is as interesting as their presentation is. So my name's Darren Peshka. I'm the Program Manager of Government Community Relations here at VCTC. I'm here this morning to give you an update on recent activity in Congress and in the state legislature. Particularly, I'll be focusing on the status of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill and the state budget. So, I forgot this is my job. I'll start on the federal side with the Build America 250 Act. So this is a 5-year surface transportation bill that would replace the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is otherwise known as the IIJA. There was, in the June legislative update, there was an overview of the Build America 250 Act, but I thought I'd touch on it this morning too. So this bill is the first step towards securing long-term transportation funding. The Build America 250 Act was introduced in early May by leaders of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and the committee passed it shortly after, as you can see on the slide. One of the positive things about this bill is that it includes provisions that are intended to create more efficient and streamlined project delivery. On the other side, one of the concerns is that a large portion of the funding that's in this bill as proposed is not guaranteed. So that means it will be subject to future appropriations from Congress, which potentially could open the door to funding uncertainty and even funding reductions. Time is also a concern. The current surface transportation bill, the IIJA, expires on September 30th. So there's not a lot of time left for this bill to make it through all the steps and to get into law. Congress has about 5 weeks left in their session. If this bill is not passed, Congress does have the option of passing a continuing resolution of the IIJA, which is our current surface transportation bill, and that would not be unusual. It has happened in the past with surface transportation bills. So we're keeping an eye on this as it moves through the process, and of course we'll provide updates later this year. So then moving on to the state side, you see here an update on the state budget and potential impacts on transportation funding. Just before the July 4th holiday, the state legislative leaders and the governor announced an agreement on the state budget for the 2026-27 fiscal year. The adopted budget is a $350 billion spending plan with $35 billion in reserves. For our purposes, I've highlighted a couple of key items. First, the budget codifies an extension of regulatory relief that was provided to transit operators during the pandemic when transit ridership fell dramatically. The relief measures include suspension of the fare box recovery penalty, which you're going to hear about a little bit more in a later presentation at this meeting. This is a two-step process, though, so to take effect, the one-year extension does require passage of a transportation budget trailer bill. So that bill has gone through the legislature and been approved. It's at the governor's desk right now, but it has not yet been signed. There are no indications that it's not going to get signed. It just hasn't been signed yet, so that's another thing that we're monitoring, and we'll provide that information too. The adopted budget does not address restructuring of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund expenditure plan, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide. And it does not include the remaining $690 million for the Zero Emission Transit Capital Program. That's part of Senate Bill 125, which we've talked about in these meetings before. And it does not include the $35 million in operating assistance that was requested by Metrolink. So over the past several months, we've been monitoring changes to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund expenditure plan, and this is a little bit explanation of why it matters to us. So the GGRF is part of the state's Cap and Invest program that used to be known as Cap and Trade. Every quarter, the California Air Resources Board holds emissions allowance auctions, and revenue from those auctions supports programs in the GGRF. Two of those programs are the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program and the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. At VCTC, the LC Top funds our Youth Ride Free, College Ride, and Free Fare Days programs. And TIRSUP funds zero-emission vehicles and zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. I do have to point out that the staff report for this item did include a mistake. It said that the Metrolink service was funded through TIRSUP. Just to clarify, it is through the LC Top, and the slide is correct there. So last year, the GGRF expenditure plan was changed to a tiered system. Tier 1 includes various state tax credits and climate expenditures. Tier 2 includes funding for high-speed rail and some discretionary expenditures. And then Tier 3 is where we fall. That includes LC Top and TIRSUP and a few other programs. Through the GGRF, each tier is scheduled to receive a fixed dollar amount of those auction revenues. However, under this structure, each tier has to be made whole before lower tiers receive funding. Given this new structure and some recent amendments that CARB made to the Cap and Invest program, there are concerns that Tier 3 programs will not receive funding. So over the past several months, transit agencies across the state, including VCTC, have been raising concerns about this new structure and the potential lack of funding for programs like LC-TOP and TIRSIP. The adopted budget does not address whether the expenditure plan is going to be adjusted or how that might be adjusted, but it's our understanding that conversations about the expenditure plan are continuing and that they will continue when the legislature returns from its summer recess. So the last item that I'll mention is an executive order on transportation that the governor signed in June. That executive order directs the California State Transportation Agency and Caltrans to implement a statewide transit policy through a number of directives. And that executive order is presented as a way to improve efficiency and to expedite transportation planning, funding, and operations. The executive order is also very new, so we're monitoring its status and we'll provide more information as we move forward. So looking ahead, there's just a couple of key dates coming up that I wanted to point out. The state legislature is in recess until August 3rd, and then we'll come back into session for a month before adjourning at the end of August. And then the governor has until September 30th to sign or veto any bills that were presented to him by September 1st. So that concludes my update, and I'm happy to take any questions the commission might have.
Great. Are there any questions for Ms. Peschke? Any questions? Mr. Erickson?
If there's no question, I just had a follow-up comment. And Darren, thank you for an excellent presentation. Darren has been working very diligently on these state issues as well as federal ones. I've also been involved in this also. It actually harkens back to my days of doing government relations in Oxnard. But this is it's a challenging time. And just to maybe not put too sharp a point on it, we are really battling to keep transit money for systems and operations that are currently working and working very well in Ventura County. And I understand the governor's trying to fill the hole that losing $5 billion for high-speed rail has created, but there's continued attempts to take money that's going to existing successful transit programs and divert it to high-speed rail. I can understand that, but we are going to keep advocating and letting our assembly members, Irwin and Bennett, know how important this money is for our programs in Ventura County that are moving people today and are very meaningful. And with all due respect to the first line of the high-speed rail between Bakersfield and Merced, which may be finished, maybe, in the early 2030s, we need this money right now to continue. So I'm just going to let you know we're keeping that advocacy on and very strongly, to the point you might even hear about it. But that's going to be my charge for the next few months. But thank you, Darren.
Great. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Erickson. Any other questions? Do we have any public comments for this item?
There are no public comments.
And I imagine there was none for the last item as well.
That is correct.
Great,
No
thank
public
you.
Comments.
Great. Anything else? This is a receive and file. If not, thank you so much for your report, Ms. Peschke. All right. So we're going to move to item number 13. That's the St. Francis Dam Memorial Project on the Santa Paula branch line. And Ms. Fagan, there you go. Over to you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Amanda Fagan, and I serve as the Director of Planning here at VCTC. So as not to steal the thunder of our presenters, I'll just give you a very brief introduction to this project. The proposed St. Francis Dam Memorial Site is located on the VCTC-owned Santa Paula branch line railroad right-of-way at the intersection of State Route 150, also known as 10th Street, within an area that's subject to the Santa Paula master lease between VCTC and the City of Santa Paula for the non-operating right-of-way that was executed and dates back all the way to 1996. This master lease does require that when the city desires to make alterations or changes to that railroad right-of-way, that they obtain VCTC's written prior consent. Such approvals are processed through the Santa Paula Branch Line Advisory Committee, which of course consists of our 2 representatives from the Board of Supervisors whose districts intersect with the line, so districts 1 and 3, and our 3 city representatives from the Branch Line corridor, so Ventura, Santa Paula, and Fillmore. So we will be scheduling a meeting of the Branch Line Advisory Committee for a formal review of the plans and approval for this project to go forward. But I thought that the full commission would benefit from hearing about this proposed project as a preview. So I'd like to introduce our speakers. Doug Nelson is a retired local architect and an avid community volunteer who's here representing the Santa Paula Historical Society. And Eric Berg is a landscape architect with Pacific Coast Land Design, supporting the Historical Society in this project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric and Doug. Thank you.
We got the forward.
Yes, just this one.
This one right here. And back. Oops.
Let's see. The bottom. Yeah, the bottom.
Go too far.
Okay, get me back to where, there we go.
There we go. So, thank you.
You can tell that I'm a retired architect from about 10 years ago. So I used to do this for a living, but anyway, as a little bit more of a background on who we are, again, Doug Nelson, Eric Berg, we both have quite a long institutional history with the Santa Paula Branch Line. I was the lead architect planner for the original Railroad Plaza that was developed back in the late 1990s. For those of you who might remember Ginger Girardi and your current staff at that point worked side by side with us on basically that whole 3-block linear park that extends on both sides of the historic Santa Paula Railroad Depot. And Eric and Pacific Coast Land Design have been consultants on various projects also over the years for that 3-block linear park. So we're here this morning to tell you a little bit about this new project, which we're quite excited to refer back a little bit on history, because I think there was a lot of key parts of the historic story, if you will, that was the foundation for the overall conceptual design that we came up with. So if you will, let me just go ahead and quickly read a little bit of the basic history of what brought this project about. From 1925 to 1928, the Bureau of Water Works and Supply of the City of Los Angeles constructed a curved concrete gravity dam in the San Francisco Quito Canyon about 5 miles northeast of what is now Santa Clarita. The St. Francis Dam was built as part of the Los Angeles Owens River Aqueduct project, and its purpose was to provide an additional 38,000 acre-feet of water storage close to Los Angeles. On March 12, 1928, as it was reaching its first filling, the St. Francis Dam failed catastrophically because of a structural engineering failure. The dam collapse was deemed the greatest American civil engineering mishap in the 20th century. The path of devastation from the dam site through Los Angeles County and into Ventura County along the Santa Clara River Valley followed a 54-mile flood path and claimed over 430 lives through the 6 communities of Saugus, Cambulas, Piru, Fillmore, Santa Paula, Satakoy, and finally at the ocean mouth at Ventura. The proposed St. Francis Dam Memorial will commemorate the flood path with an interpretive walk along the path of destruction. In terms of a fundamental conceptual response to the flood path, we have essentially a logging of that path that took about 5.5 hours total from the time that it breached the dam at midnight to the time it hit the Pacific Ocean in Ventura. So we're using some hand-cut stone decorative plinths, monuments, and you can see those.
I don't know if the laser works.
Do we have a little? Well, we don't have the pointer, unfortunately, but you can see the 6 plinths along the kind of winding decorative path, and each of those monuments will show both the time that the flood reached each community and also the speed at which it was passing that community. For example, Santa Paula, it reached at 3:05 a.m. in the morning, and the speed of the flood path at that point was 11.2 miles per hour. So again, in terms of immersing people into in scale and impact of this, the whole idea is to tell a story that really tries to wrap your brain around how incredibly catastrophic this was. One of the things I should explain in terms of Eric and mine's involvement in this, as far as our history, I was the lead planner architect back in the late 1990s when we did that project, and we're using the same basic design elements and components that we used in a lot of those other projects, the renovations around the historic depot, the police memorial, the gazebo, the farm worker memorial, and a lot of the work that Eric and his firm have done with the Museum of Ventura County's Ag Museum, and also, of course, the bike path that aligns your right-of-way. So we've been very, very focused on making sure that this project is integral with that overall design concept that started 25 years ago. We also have some linkage to other historic memorials and buildings. I mentioned the police memorial, the farm worker memorial, and the Ag Museum. And within a block of this project, we also have the Santa Paula Art Museum, which we're closely tied with regard to the Historic Society. So there's a critical mass here of important, let's call it visitor economic development drivers. I mean, we really have over the years been very pleased to see the amount of visitors that now come to Santa Paula, to historic downtown Santa Paula, to truly appreciate the great history we have to share with visitors from outlying areas. I want to make the point that this is very much a community-driven project, and the funding is completely community-based. We currently have raised over half the amount of money that we have budgeted to build it. As you know, it's not exactly the best of times right now to be going through a capital campaign, but we're pretty confident that we'll be able to raise that other half to get this built by March 12th, 2028, which is the centennial date. That's the key. We need to get this completed by that date. So we're here to answer any questions, and please, thank you.
Great. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? No questions? Commissioner White?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the bike path that goes through there, and I'm wondering who keeps it clean as far as rubbish, trees, things like that, throughout the whole bike path through Santa Paula.
I don't know the specific answer to that because, we're just assuming that the people with the city of Santa Paula, who we were actually working very closely with.
I think Amanda Fagan of my
Greg
team can answer
Barnes
that.
with the city of Santa Paula.
Yeah, I can-
Go ahead, man.
I can take that one. Going back to the beginning of the bike trail development, there are existing agreements between VCTC and the cities and the county that the jurisdiction through which the trail passes is responsible for maintaining the bike trail piece of that. For this particular site, the bike trail would be sort of kitty corner across 10th Street and sort of ends there at the Agriculture Museum. And I'm trying to remember exactly the alignment of where the bike trail extension through the city is proposed. Maybe Eric can help me with that one.
I can speak a little bit. It does follow this sidewalk. It actually veers onto this sidewalk east to the other end of the park, and then it continues the trail to what I believe is 12th Street, and that's where the extension project is currently picking up with the city of Santa Paula.
Thank you. Eric is a subcontractor on both the Trail Master Plan update as well as working for the city of Santa Paula on their extension design work, so thank you. So this particular site and the whole Santa Paula master lease area is actually, according to that lease, maintained by the city of Santa Paula. So their Parks Department, as Doug mentioned, Greg Barnes and his team maintain this particular facility. And it's, we've done an initial review of the plans, and I don't see a conflict between the proposed plans for the memorial site and the railroad operations. If anything, there's an added benefit by better defining the sort of borderline between the Railroad Plaza Park and the operating railroad right-of-way. So this, they've done a really nice job of sort of fitting it into the context of the existing railroad park, so as not to impact rail operations. And I would also note that this is sort of the starting point for the rail bikes. And so any work to improve and beautify this this area does benefit those railroad operations there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's great to see it used so much, not only by bicyclists but pedestrians up and down there. Some of us have a hard time getting around the pedestrians, but most of the time it's very well used. And I think that congratulations on that, and good luck in your.
In this particular aerial rendering that you see, at the 75th anniversary of the St. Francis Dam disaster, Eric Richards, a sculptor from Ojai, did what is called the Warning, which is the sculpture there of the two motorcycle officers that on the morning of the 1928, they basically went around Santa Paula to give everyone the warning that this flood path was on its way. So they were credited for saving many, many, many lives. And that, again, was the 75th anniversary. So there's some continuity there, too. And, we can see, those of us who live in the community and see how this particular site attracts visitors, there's oftentimes quite a few people that have stopped and, are appreciating that sculpture.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
Great. Any other questions or comments? If not, do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Great.
Thank you.
And this is a receive and file. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
It's like a beautiful monument. Okay, we're going to move to item number 14, California Transit Fare Box Requirement Update by Ms. Grassi.
Good morning, Commissioners. This presentation was requested by Commissioner Tremblay, so I'm going to go over, I'll be going over what the fare box recovery ratio policy is and the requirements. Ultimately, it's a metric that links transit funding to performance. I'll also talk about the COVID-19, the pandemic impacts on service and meeting the requirements, but also on policy changes. Talk a little bit about how Ventura County in particular is affected by this, and then what's kind of happening at the policy level and what we'd like to see in the future. So what the fare box recovery ratio is, it's the share of transit fares, the share of transit operating costs that are covered by passenger fares. However, there's a lot of other sources that can be included in this, but basically you take the share of the fares and divide it by the operating costs. But as I mentioned, you can include other things such as what we call route guarantees. So for VCTC, this includes funding that we get from Cal State Channel Islands or our funding partners, SBCAG. We can use those funds. You could use bus advertising revenue, all those types of funds you can include and with your fares, and use that to help you get to the thresholds that are needed, which I'll talk about in a second. But Ventura County in particular is really affected by this because we don't have a local transportation sales tax. So for the vast majority of counties that have large public transit operators, they also have a transportation sales tax. And so they are able to use those funds. They're already using them for operating costs, so they're able to use those funds in their calculations, and so they're not really at risk of being penalized the way that Ventura County transit operators are. So, this is an important metric, and it is tied to funding, but it's not necessarily the full picture of of transit success. So, the thresholds for the fare box recovery ratio requirement is that for an urban transit operator, they have, fares need to cover 20% of the operating costs. And then for rural operators, so like Valley Express and Santa Paula and Fillmore, they need to meet 10% to qualify for the TDA funding. So, what happens if you don't meet that is that the funding cut is equal to the revenue shortfall if you don't meet that over a couple of years. So you get kind of 1 year pass, and then usually after that or the following year, then whatever you're short, you will be basically penalized that same amount. And so I'll kind of get into the kind of consequences this can have, but that's really how it works. So the goal is to promote cost efficiency and accountability, but it can, as you can imagine, have unintended consequences. And so in order to change this requirement, it has to be done at through the legislature. Okay, so again, it is, the goal is to promote efficiency, but you can imagine, agencies, then prioritize high ridership routes. And of course, those are, important. Peak commuter routes generally are very, pretty efficient. And so, what can happen is agencies are kind of, prioritizing that type of service at the cost of other types of service, broader service coverage, favoring, social service or rural needs can be, come at that expense. And it, can conflict with certain, goals that, we may have, or, the region may have, SCAG, the state may have, such as, mobility, equity, climate goals can sometimes be in conflict with trying to meet this requirement. So I want to talk a little bit about what's happened in Ventura County. So as I mentioned, it can be harder for us to meet this requirement. And prior to the pandemic, they were penalties were issued, and there was a transit agency in Ventura County that didn't meet the threshold for a couple years, and then ended up being docked that money. And so, as you can imagine, when you are running your service, that your budget is your budget. If you lose funding, you have to come up with, funds from some other place, your general fund, something like that, or you have to either cut service or raise fares. And so that can just have, what they, colloquially known as the kind of transit death spiral. So if you are already struggling to meet this threshold and then you cut your service or raise fares, then it can just exacerbate the problem. And so in addition, some of that service that's typically cut, lower performing routes, are the routes that are used more often by essential workers, seniors, students, and low income residents. And so it can have an even harsher impact in certain areas. So during the pandemic, you can imagine, obviously we all know transit was affected significantly during the pandemic. And so not only was service cut significantly, we lost obviously most of the ridership. And then on top of that, we were not charging fares because of, health risks. So luckily there was some relief at the state level, and agencies didn't have to meet that. They wouldn't have had a lot of fare revenue from not collecting fares to do that, but obviously depressed ridership. So that was great that there was relief. Of course, if there was enforcement, it would have exacerbated the situation greatly. But at this time, ridership hasn't come back to pre-pandemic levels. We haven't seen a whole lot of fare increases across the county. And then, especially early on in the pandemic, costs to operate transit grew significantly. And so, of course, mathematically, it's harder to meet those thresholds. And we're seeing kind of transit operating costs kind of jump again more recently. So meeting this threshold is just more and more difficult. And so, as I mentioned, it had been, there's been some statutory relief, it was done for a couple years. That is has been now ending was just ended at the end of FY26. And there has just been a lot of uncertainty, which has kind of made it hard for agencies to plan and know what all was going to happen. So talk a little bit about what's currently going on. So Darren talked a little bit about this in her presentation. And so as I mentioned, there was relief through the end of FY26. There is a trailer bill that has been approved by the legislature, but not yet signed by the governor, that extends this for another year. But it is only for another year, so we'll, be right back where we are next year, a year from now. So, like I said, we have this larger problem, and it is very difficult to meet. It is even more difficult than it was prior to the pandemic to meet these thresholds, and it was already a problem prior to the pandemic, particularly for Ventura County. So one thing though that was helpful during this, when they had the statutory relief, was that they allowed for other funds to be calculated as part of this metric. So you could use other types of funding in your calculation. So, fares are still ultimately only covering a certain percentage, but you could include other funding types in addition to the others that I mentioned earlier as route guarantees, transportation sales taxes, bus revenue, all those other things. You can now include other types of funding, such as state of good repair funds and things like that have helped significantly. And so even if the requirement is no longer waived, this does certainly help and will definitely help some of the agencies meet those thresholds. But ultimately, we would like to see this kind of, a long-term plan here that help supports transit growth and, doesn't penalize it in a way that can just kind of exacerbate, the success of transit. So there is active engagement. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So through SB 125, there was a transit transformation task force. In the report, they did address the fare box recovery ratio. Really, they just recommended TDA reform, but they didn't really go into actual, what exactly should happen or anything like that. Just kind of mainly stated that it should be addressed. The California Transit Association has been advocating for this reform. They helped to get this extension. Both VCTC and staff from the other operators are on CTA committees. This is something that we've been actively engaged on since prior to the pandemic, and we still are. So we're hoping, given that there just keeps being this temporary relief, that since there's also recommendations out of the TTTF, that hopefully there will be some motivation to kind of fix this, for the long term. So, I think this is important, still a very important metric. But we think, what's been discussed, at the TTTF and other places is that there should probably be additional metrics. Ultimately, if we're just adding more and more funds that could be counted to passenger fares, it kind of maybe gets away from the purpose of what it was doing in the first place. So I think there's been definitely some thoughts on this, through the TTTF, through other advocacy ways as well. And so we're hopeful that that will continue to happen. But right now we're kind of in this holding pattern. And we know, well, as soon as, hopefully the governor signs the bill, that we'll have relief for one more year. But during this time, I think we want to, continue to advocate for a long-term solution. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Claire, thanks for a great report. I really appreciate it. This is obviously something of great import for Ventura County, given the lack of a local sales tax and being able to count that revenue within the fare box recovery enforcement. Claire, you had can you go back to the last slide? So what I'm particularly interested in is discussions that might be occurring relative to the shifting performance metrics. And we need to focus on cost efficiency and accountability, but is there another option that's available? So out of the ones that you've put up there, like ridership growth, service quality, rider experience, do any of those three stand out as kind of the potential leading alternative metric in the discussion?
Yeah, I think, it's nice that there is the fare box recovery because it's a, baseline, everyone can use it. But I think ridership is another metric that many agencies also are kind of using the same type, it's ridership. We're all counting passengers the same way. I think service quality and rider experience are very important, but they're a bit more subjective and it could maybe harder to have kind of more consistent results across agencies. But I think having maybe kind of a couple different metrics that, that are all looked at, and it's not just one, maybe you have something like ridership, fare box recovery, and you're looking at true fare box recovery, and something like, rider experience, especially if there's some sort of baseline way that all agencies were measuring that. But I think maybe a kind of a multi-pronged approach, there's a couple metrics that that everyone is using, I think might be a great way to do it. But I mean, Martin, I don't know if you have any.
I have probably more knowledge and experience on this than most people. But to your point, Commissioner Tremblay, and as Claire noted, before the pandemic, we were actually very close to reforming TDA. It was moving through the system to change the metrics There was almost universal agreement on different ones that allowed communities more local control while still having a level of accountability. And it just unfortunately has not been carried over that finish line of making a permanent change to the fare box recovery requirement itself. Hopefully that still could happen. I mean, this extension will probably be approved, the governor will sign it, but we are advocating, along with the California Transit Association, as Claire noted, and other groups, to make it a permanent change going forward that still has performance metrics, but they're not penalizing communities like Ventura County.
And that's the concern. And the concern is having the death spiral effect. And so I really appreciate the report, Claire. I guess, and my overall concern from a policy standpoint is, since the pandemic occurred, we've now had 6 years of suspension of this rule, and the legislature keeps kicking the can down the road. And from one of your other slides, it does create real planning uncertainty in the long term as you're trying to put together capital projects and operations. And so anyway, I really appreciate and thank you to the commission for indulging me and asking for this report, because it is something that is of direct import to all of our transit agencies here in Ventura County. So Claire, thanks for a good job.
Of course. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Inegren?
Thank you. So we always talk about how the transit ridership hasn't caught back up to the pre-COVID levels, but that's been about 6 years, and a lot of things have changed. I mean, e-bikes have popped up, and they're everywhere now. Everyone even owns them. Even homeless people own e-bikes. Do you think that there might be a issue where people have found alternatives to transit in general, and we might be chasing a institution that is not going to keep up with the future?
Yeah, I think things have certainly changed significantly. I think, of course, a big part of that is that, remote work or hybrid work is still so common, right? So early on in the pandemic, I was naively hopeful that things like rail ridership, people moved and they're not commuting as often, that maybe they're more likely to try transit. And that didn't end up happening the way I was hoping. But, I was hoping things like van pool and like all, having more of a, multifaceted, approach to, not always driving and not always, single occupancy vehicles, I think has in particular been affected by the continuance of hybrid and remote work, which has its own great benefits, because in some ways, where VMT has its, risen to pre-COVID levels, but maybe has had some benefits as well. So yeah, I think we have been really trying to be creative in how we solve this problem. It's definitely more affected by certain types of ridership has come back and certain have not. Gold Coast at one point saw ridership higher than pre-pandemic levels and was one of the only in the SCAG region to see that. The Valley Express at certain times has seen their ridership go above pre-pandemic levels. So it seems very clear that certain areas that serve maybe have more transit supportive uses and things like that are really seeing the need for that kind of continued investment. Whereas, other types of modes, especially ones that rely on commuters in particular, are seeing, less rebounding of growth. So I think in those cases in particular, really thinking about like other ways that we can support those, and not just necessarily in transit. But yes, to your point, that's one of the main reasons we wanted to do the short range transit plan, is because things have changed so significantly, and the way that we have been approaching it historically, I think, has needed to change. And so we've wanted to become more innovative, but I think, this is why some of these metrics are so important. And so it's not that we want to see the metrics like go away necessarily. We don't want to necessarily be penalized on top of them, but I think being, more strategic about the types of metrics that we're looking at, maybe metrics that we weren't looking at before, and kind of having, a broader view of the health of transit is important. But yes, of course, there's been lots of things. I have an e-bike, those types of things have really, really changed how often people are taking transit, no question. But there's other things, I think, as well. And so, yes, your point is well taken. I do think, it's certainly a challenge ahead of us.
Any other questions or comments? No, are any public comments?
No public comments. Thank you.
Great. This is a receive and file. So if there is no other questions, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
report. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 15, our general counsel report.
No report from general counsel.
Great, thank you. And now we'll move to the agency reports. We'll start with SCAG, and that's Commissioner Judge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Transportation Committee took action to move forward 3 items to the Regional Council for approval last week. The 2027 FTIP and Draft Connect SoCal 2024 Amendment Number 2 has been released to the public for comment and public review. As we continue to implement the region's Connect SoCal plan, we work closely with members to ensure the plan represents conditions on the ground. The Transportation Committee forwarded to SCAG the toll credit TDC policy to the Regional Council for approval. The committee recommended that the Regional Council approve the release of the Last Mile Freight Program Measure 2.2 Invest Clean Rebate Program announcement, so that'll be coming out soon. These items will continue to support members and stakeholders agencies as we implement the region's sustainable transportation visions through Connect SoCal. Lastly, the committee heard 2 informational items. First, Transportation Committee outlook and future agenda items presentation was provided by Annie Nam. The committee's outlook was discussed previously as part of SCAG's annual EAC retreat in June. And the last item we covered was the Road to LA 28 Transportation Demand Management Strategy. And this was the final informational item the committee received. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to MetroLink. Commissioner Tremblay.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So at the June 26th MetroLink board meeting, the board did, after a lengthy, robust discussion on a split vote, adopted MetroLink's current simplified and discount rate structure. But the bottom line is the board, on the one hand, raised the price of the SoCal Day Pass and raised the price of the one-way ticket by 14%, and that implementation would occur by October 1 of 2026. But at the same time, it deferred a decision on FY27 service reductions. So the 2 decisions were not made contemporaneously. They're being made, there's a deferral on this, and that was the primary, one of the drivers behind the robust discussion among the board members. And remember, MetroLink is dealing with a very, very difficult financial situation, particularly because of a reduction in funding to MetroLink by Orange County Transit Authority for next fiscal year and LA Metro. And so there's the example of the death spiral discussion, because what do? MetroLink had not raised fares in, I think it was 13 years. And so anyway, you now have some increased in fares, and the fare box revenue requirement is a part of this policy discussion. But again, made no decision. It deferred a decision on further service reductions, and the reductions, there have already been service reductions. So, what do? And in any event, the meeting lasted for quite a long time. I really want to praise the efforts of Claire and Aubrey and Martin and all the VCTC staff and keeping us posted on this, because they're the ones in the trenches who are working on this with staff from the other county transportation commissions. I'm hopeful that we will have a decision, or this matter will be coming to the MetroLink board for a special meeting on August 14th for a decision on what service reductions, if any, are going to occur. But coming out of this, just one more, we made three, the board adopted three motions. One is to actually consider putting into place every year in policy, are we going to increase the fares or not? Or are we going to kick the can down the road? So putting that into policy, what is done with return of surplus funds to each of the county transportation entities each year, and then finally, how can we do the budget process better to avoid what has happened this year in terms of the budget process? Are there some structural changes that could be made? And so the board adopted all those motions as well, with some substantive discussion to occur on all of those by the end of this calendar year, by December 31. So quite a Metrolink board meeting. It's been a very, very difficult few months. So anyway, that's the extent of my report. Hopefully we'll have good news coming out of the August 14th special board meeting. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to
Chair McQueen-LeJean,
right ahead.
do you mind if we take one of the reports out of order? I know that Commissioner
Okay.
Crosswhite has to leave it. If we could
Okay,
do
sure.
her update before the Losan one. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to CalCogs. Commissioner Crosswhite.
Yes, just a couple of things. One, we approved the fiscal year 26-27 budget, which does increase member dues by 10%. It's been a number of years since those dues increased. And part of the purpose of that is that they want to establish, there's currently no operating reserve. And so they want to establish an operating reserve. So half of that 5% increase will go into the operating reserve. In total, it brings VCTC's dues to just over $9,000. So we're not talking about a lot of money. And part of the reason for the need for the operating reserve is that CalCog has been more reliant in recent years on grants, and they're grants that are reimbursement-based grants. And so they've had to have a line of credit that they've been having to tap into to pay day-to-day expenses while they wait to be reimbursed on some of these larger grants. And so they're hoping that with the reserve, that will help with some of the cash flow issues that they've been having with these reimbursement grants. There's also an increase in staffing in the budget because the executive director, Bill Higgins, plans to go part-time. And so they need some additional staff support to pick up the other part of the duties that he would have normally done. And then they also wanted to share that about 18 to 20% of the dues will likely be spent on advocacy. Just for the finance folks, that tells you how much of that funding can't come from certain sources. And then they also took action to reaffirm support for the SB 375 bill, which is SB 1087. Bill Higgins created a really great line-by-line analysis of each and every provision that was in the bill. And I know that there was a lot of discussion around some of the things that have been taken out, which included the CEQA planning exemption that had been proposed in that bill. That is no longer in there. It was opposed by both the building industry and the environmental groups. So the author of the bill did remove that, but there were a lot of members that really want to see that move forward in the future. So the board ultimately voted to reaffirm support of SB 1087. There's still a lot of really good stuff in the bill, including moving to a longer planning cycle. So there would be longer for implementation in between. So instead of every 4 years, it would be every 8 years. That's still in there, and a bunch of other things. But then they had a secondary motion to direct staff to continue to look for some CEQA-related planning reforms. So that is my CalCog update. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're going to move to Losan, which is Amtrak Pacific Surfliner, and that is Commissioner White.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good news, bad news. Good news is that Losan had the highest ridership in June before pre-pandemic. What's the scoop, huh? It's often packed with people, especially in this end. We've had several wraps where we wrap the trains for buses or for trains. The FIFA had a big wrap. It was kind of cool. The soccer matches down in LA, which will end today. So if you want to go down there, today's the day. But very exciting news with Losan. It's good to hear that people are actually using the train to get places and not just using their cars. So that's all I'll say about Losan right now.
Okay, you can go on to the Coastal Rail Coordinating Council.
CCRC, Coastal Rail, our next meeting is in September. They do talk about the high-speed rail quite often, which is an interesting dichotomy because some of us from the south feel one way and some of us from the north feel another way. And so it's been an interesting discussion, but we won't be meeting until September. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, now would you like to move to Calvans?
I'd like Calvans to move a little bit more than what they're doing now. We are struggling, very much so. We did pass a budget yesterday at our board meeting, but there's just a lot of uncertainty with money coming in, and that's why we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. But Calvans is still out there. It's an amazing organization that takes people from one place to another, and I love to see it keep going. But as my cohort says, we're struggling and waiting to see what's going to happen down the road. Down the road, yeah. So anyway, thank you very much. That's it.
Great. Any commissioner last minute items? I do have one, but I want to give you all a chance to go first. No? So that is the last official agenda item. I do just want to inform you all that Port Hueneme will be having their beach festival starting tomorrow and Sunday from 10 o'clock to 8 p.m. There's a great lineup of music. If you find you have time in your schedules, please come out. It'll be a fun time. I know a lot of our partners will generally have a booth there, so it'd be a nice time to talk to them as well. So if you're not doing anything, please come out. Again, it's tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 to 8 p.m., yes. So would love to see you. So if there's nothing else, we're going to adjourn today's meeting. The time is 10:44. We'll be back here in this room September the 11th at 9 o'clock, and we hope to see you all then. The meeting is adjourned.